Day 3 of being locked up in this prison, and I'm slowly going insane. Day 4, and I've started to eat pebbles off the ground. Day 5, bashing my head against the wall isn't
Day
making
6,
any
I've
progress.
started gnawing at the
Day
table
7,
for nutrients.
Day 9,
Why am I in a
Day
chicken
11,
jockey?
Day 14,
Why did he dress up as
Day
Day
16,
Square root.
Day
This one you
17,
get
Day
for
20,
peaked in
Day
college,
21,
set my oven
Day
on
25,
fire.
Day 26,
Games.
Day
Taking
28,
away limited
games,
games. Blow up
Day
a prison
32,
door.
games.
Rule
What if I use the
34,
pistol if
35,
it's on the internet?
like
There's
and subscribe.
probably porn of
Day
it.
36, I have a plan to escape. Hey y'all, emergency player here. I've been stuck in this prison for 36 days. I'm doing perfectly fine, but I do have this really good plan to get me out of here. It just has to go exactly how I planned it to get out. Wait, that wasn't part of the plan. Sometimes things don't go to plan, and you have to improvise on the spot. I like to compare game development to a Souls-like roguelike. It's pretty difficult, you never know what to expect, and you need to trust the process and adapt on the fly. And that's what I found myself doing a lot when I was developing Labyrinth Run. This all started between the winter of 2020 and 2021. During this break, I played a lot of Risk of Rain 2. Then Jonah, the artist for Cowboy Zelda, reached out to me with a proposal. What if we co-led a game pitch for a racing game? Jonah already had a good chunk of the slides ready. It was basically battle mode from Mario Kart, which was a really fun idea. With this idea in mind, we go to the first meeting of the new semester. At the meeting, Celine, the president of the game development club, announces that this semester they'll be trying something new for the game pitches. This year, they'll have a theme. This semester's theme was containment. After the meeting, Jonah and I met to discuss the theme. We decided that our racing game would probably go on pause. Heavily inspired by all of the Risk of Rain 2 and Doom 2016 that I have been playing, and Jonah playing a lot of Enter the Gungeon, we shifted towards pitching a first-person shooter with roguelike elements. This was the pitch. You're a sole survivor in a city of infected parasites that must be cleansed in order to survive. Our idea is that you had this city hub with different buildings that you could enter. Each building would have about 3 to 5 levels based on a certain theme. You'll need to clear all of the enemies in a level to move on to the next floor. Each enemy would drop power-ups to boost your stats. We also wanted procedural generation. Yeah, right, buddy. Obviously now this would be a lot easier, but I was just entering my second semester of college, and at this point I was just learned the difference between an int and a float. The inspirations were pretty clear. We even placed it on our slides. Jonah was heavily inspired by Enter the Gungeon, and I was heavily inspired by Risk of Rain 2 and Doom 2016. With all of this in mind, our goal for the MVP was to have a functional building and hub level, have some basic first-person shooting and combat, have some collectible power-ups, and have some enemy designs. Now, what did we actually end up with? This game has a lot of guns. We have bullpup rifle, carbine rifle, pistol, pump shotgun, SMG, semi-auto shotgun. That is 6 whole guns. How did I do it? Jonah modeled the guns, and then I added textures and encoded the gun script. We made them hit scan instead of projectiles. These 4 guns use the same script but have different numbers to match the behaviors that we wanted. The shotguns were an extension of the main gun script, but with several bullets going out in a random pattern. Thank you, object-oriented programming. The power-ups. These ended up being a much smaller feature of the game than I anticipated. We made the enemies drop them, and they just offer small stat boosts like increased fire rate, increased damage, more health, more ammo, and things like that. As mentioned earlier, originally we were supposed to have zombies as the enemies, but I ended up 3D modeling Stranger Things. We ended with 2 enemies in the game and 1 boss fight. First off, Frog Monster. This little imp demon would walk around and headbutt you. I used this monster in a previous animation I made in high school. The monster constantly heads towards the player direction, and I found during playtesting, it doesn't adhere to gravity, so it leads to very interesting situations. Our second enemy is the elongated creature. This super long, slender man-like being swings its arm at you. With this wider range, it also has more health and deals more damage than the frog monster. These two combined make for very simple melee enemies, but they also sneak up on you and everything, making some very fun, very simple encounters. Now for the boss. The boss's design is actually inspired by the Gonk droid in Star Wars. One more disclaimer I was not planning on doing. Disney, please do not sue me. I do not make any money off this game, and this is just a student project made for educational purposes. This isn't the Gonk droid from Star Wars, but just a square robot that takes inspiration from Gonk. This boss was a very last-second addition to the game. Basically, this guy named Gonk joined the Discord server and tricked the president into giving him the highest role in the server. Out of pure respect for this move, the members of the club created a cult out of him called the Gonk Cult. As a fellow member of the Gonk cult and someone who wanted to contribute to the president's declining mental state, I decided to add a robot whose design was inspired by the Lego Gonk from the Star Wars Lego games, but is no actual representative of the Gonk droid from Star Wars or its Lego game representative. This robot boss would shoot missiles that track the player and have the shape of the little guys from Among Us, because I had a 3D model of the Among Us characters and I thought it would be easier than making a simple bullet. Because of how detailed the Among Us model is, I actually had to limit the fire rate of the robot because it would crash Unity every time I tried to shoot at the player. For maps, we had 7 levels and 1 boss room. When starting out, I initially made these rooms with pillars to represent a parking garage, and then I started adding in shaders and then started messing around with the stone, and then ended up with this weird techno wall thing after I changed it a bit. Then from there, I decided to ditch the abandoned city idea, and then we started to pivot more towards a labyrinth. The rooms were entirely made in Blender, and my main regret with this is that you can't really edit the level layout in Unity once it's been exported. So whatever was in Unity, you're stuck with that layout. Here are the different rooms. This first room that I made has a massive pillar in the center and 4 pillars in the corners. Initially, this didn't have the massive pillar in the center, but once I pivoted towards making it a labyrinth, I decided to add the pillar in the center of the room. This second room has 2 pillars acting as an entryway in this elevated section here, and some general cover in the lower half of the room. This third room was inspired by a Valorant map. It's one of the points from the launch maps since the game was still very new when I made this game. But I can't exactly remember which one. I tried looking it up briefly on the maps on the Valorant website, but the maps have definitely changed layouts over time, so I can't really tell. If someone can tell me which map this is, please let me know in the comments below. But this one's nice because of how tight it is, and the different levels means that you could jump around a lot and evade enemies very easily. The fourth room has 2 levels with a ramp guiding up the player to go up, and 2 pillars in the middle. There's an enemy hiding in the middle of the pillars and at the end of the second floor, so it ensures that you explore the whole area unless those enemies walk towards you directly. This fifth room is probably my favorite. It's this giant tower with this pillar up the middle. Your goal is to climb up the tower and get to the top while defeating all the enemies while going up. The frog monsters not having gravity applied to them actually adds to the area, because if you take too long to defeat the enemies on the first level, and then you look up, all the frog monsters are slowly crawling towards you, which makes this really creepy effect. The sixth room is just a hallway with 6 pillars. It's very simple, but has a very nice pace and effect to it. Finally, the 7th room is the most innovative, by being more than just a rectangle. Raymond made this room, and it has 2 levels where you can shoot from the top level to the bottom level because of certain holes in the room. It's very fun to hop between the first and second floor, weaving through all the enemies within this room. Now for the boss room. This room is the room that Raymond made, but I increased the size and added some pillars. The pillars were necessary due to how the robot functions with its auto-seeking missiles. Our goal was to have the player weave around the pillars and shoot the robot to avoid taking damage from those missiles. That was all the main rooms that you fight in. A very late addition was this beginning prison room. This was to add some context to the quote-unquote story of our game, where the player was trapped in a labyrinth and had to escape. The player will first spawn in this room and find a dead, elongated monster, and then a spare gun, which teaches them how to pick up a gun, and then they will escape. You're probably wondering, where's the procedural generation? Now, we did add some procedural elements to the game, specifically with the maps. How it works is once the player exits the beginning prison area, all the rooms are randomly placed onto a queue and get popped out as a player enters a new room. Once the queue is emptied, they'll find the boss room. We had a weird bug initially where every time the player enters the new room, the generator will add another set of 7 maps at the end of the queue, which leads to this infinite loop in the game where the player can never exit or enter that boss room. Now here's a few more random things that are also in the game that I really want to highlight. There are these barrels that you can shoot for explosions and then boxes that you can shoot for any items. There's actually a mini-map on the top corner of the screen with the camera just pointing downwards. The player has a dash. The player is also just a red cylinder. Yeah, that's really it. This being the first game that I properly led and the first 3D game of the club, this game was pretty solid and surprisingly had a lot of features. Kudos to the team who were so helpful in every step of the development of this game. While the end result was really good, there were still a good amount of hiccups that we ran into during development. Remember when I said I learned to Git? Yeah, no, there were so many Git problems with this project, especially around the end of the project, mainly because I forgot a git ignore. And to this day, I never fixed those problems, so now there's just thousands and thousands of merge conflicts on the GitHub repo that I am never going to touch again. The other significant one that comes to mind is baking the textures. My 18-year-old brain couldn't wrap my head around baking shaders for a while. Then I found a YouTube tutorial but didn't watch it all the way, so I baked all of the lighting into the textures as well. Ironically, this led to one of the best looking games that I made during college, just due to the cycles rendering and the lighting. After a semester's worth of hard work, the night before the final day of the game pitch, I decided, instead of getting a good night's sleep, what if I made a trailer for our game? At that point, I haven't really made any YouTube videos in a minute, since I was so focused on the game and on school, so I said why not, and started playing the game. It was also cool making this trailer because I had to go in engine and then make a build specifically without the player's gun, just so I could walk around and get some basic B-roll footage of the maps. Honestly, I think this trailer turned out really well, especially in sync with a lot of the music and the shots and how the player moves around the map. Looking back, would I redo this game? No, but this game was a great learning experience. With this being my second game, I learned a lot about Unity and a lot about programming. It motivated me to become a better software engineer because I was applying the things that I learned in my intro to programming class directly into this game, especially with the different data structures. This game is also what most likely helped me get a board position in the game development club as secretary, as I had one of the largest game dev teams. This also made me one of the youngest board members in a while, which really cemented my path in college growing with this game development club. If I do end up working on another first-person shooter, I'll definitely look back on this game and take the lessons that I learned and apply it to future games. But just like a roguelike, adapting on the fly allowed us to make the best possible game. If we did not have that flexibility, we probably would have gotten slapped around, headbutted, and given up. But even when we got stuck and beaten for a bit, it didn't hurt us to take a step back, take a small break, and then dive in for one more run. Oh, what the hell?